All right, everybody, welcome to the Mortgage Coach 10X Tuesday interview. For over 15 years, every Tuesday, 9 o'clock, I've been interviewing amazing mortgage professionals. And this, I think, is the fourth time I have had Daniel Saw on a YouTube interview. What's up, Daniel?
How you doing, Dave? Great to be here.
Good. It's been just a pleasure to get to know you. I've known of you for many years because you've been a grandmaster mortgage coach, and I always knew you did a lot of business, but it wasn't until last year I just realized just how special your platform is.
Well, thanks, Dave, and likewise, it has been truly a blessing to get to know you and to become part of your community and also to meet those that mean a lot to you as well. You've made a big impact, and it's just really exciting to be part of this journey with you. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, and I really believe that we're in a market that it's a really special time in the market for a lot of reasons. Before I showcase those, I do want to just make sure I got the numbers right. So, how is Daniel doing right now in this market? Last year, they became the #1 market share leader in Columbus, Ohio market. Putting Big Bank, Huntington Bank, Rocket, there's a few others that are behind them in market share. To me, a metric that I'm just really impressed with is that last month they closed 273 loans with 40 loan officers. That means they are averaging 6.8 loans per month per loan officer. Daniel, how is the Daniel Saw team doing? I know, that's your region, the division you lead, but how is your team doing now?
We just closed out the first semester at an exact 200 closings. For my personal production, we're at 200 closings, and then the team with 40 loan officers, we're at about 1,250 closings year to date. So as a unit collectively, year to date, we're at 5.5 closings per LO. Last month, we're at 6.8, right? So even including January and February, right, we're still year to date already at 5.5. We're 31% up year over year compared to last year, right? And last year, was our best year ever. So we're on track for upwards almost $1 billion in volume this year, which is really exciting.
Yeah, so incredible. And then, guys, the metrics that really matter and that are driving this is their conversion rates. Credit report to close loan are literally in the top 5 percentile in the country, maybe top 1 percentile. Their pricing concessions and how often they happen, how big they are leading in FM. We've got a case study, and Daniel Saw's group is just extraordinarily efficient. And it's not like luck, it's strategy, it's leadership, and it's delivering best practices in the market. So I want to tee up this call because I want to bring leadership to anyone that's watching this, that's going to help them turn this time we are in the market into a competitive advantage. And here's how I see it, Daniel. I'm going to ask you how you see it, but I see it like we're in a market where we really have a historically low number of purchase transactions taking place. So realtors are stressed, they're struggling, there's less purchase business taking place. We're at a historically level inventory, which means they're not getting listings. That's creating an issue. On top of that, we've got this NAR settlement coming into place that's truly changing how the business works for real estate agents. I mean, while obviously the biggest shift is the buyer's agent, but it's a shift for the listing agent as well. So I mean, I guess by any other market dynamics you want to call out when you do business planning and you look at the market, anything else that you want to call out as a challenge or a pain point in the industry?
Yeah, certainly. Well, the affordability, right? And so the one of the things that is contributing quite a bit to the affordability issue is the fact that we have large institutional investors and some foreign investors that are coming in and buying out all these single family homes and turning neighborhoods into renters, right? And so that's a big impact, right? You have a family trying to raise kids, right? Looking to buy an average purchase price today is in the 400,000 range. and they're competing with cash offers coming in from investors in some cases, not even living in the US. And so that's been a pretty big shift as of late, right? The pressure coming in from institutional investors to take over, single family homes and ultimately, turn the economy into a renter economy. This has been something we've seen happen in Europe. So it's something that we're dealing with right now. And the way to address that is more inventory, right? We definitely need more homes. But, regardless of all of the obstacles, right, which will always be in place, right? Once we get over this obstacle, there's going to be another one. And what remains solid is whatever it is that we can control, right? What we can control right now is the specific strategy to overcome these obstacles. What we can control right now is the process that we put in place, in order to, execute on a specific vision and strategy. What we control right now is how we train our team to execute on the process, right? And so if you have a great vision, if you have the right strategy based upon, specific obstacles we're dealing with, you have the right processes in place to overcome these obstacles, and then you properly coach your team into how to execute on a consistent basis, you're simply going to win. And the reason why it's actually easier in this scenario, when there's obstacles, Dave, people really scramble, right? People don't know how to react, right? There's very little emphasis on training salespeople, right? And I talk to a lot of the salespeople that I know. They're lucky to even get an hour of coaching, per month, right? And that's just not enough, right? You need 5, 6, 8+ hours of coaching per month to be able to win in this market. But I think that when things are hard, right, that's when it's actually the easiest to pick up market share, because when things are easy, anyone, stumbles into market share, right? But I think that we're going to see another 6 to 8 months where, things are going to be somewhat difficult, and we're probably going to be at the end of this cycle very soon. But the obstacles will always be there, and that presents opportunity.
Yeah, no doubt. So I'm going to show a couple slides that Josh Metal shared with me last week. They're actually rolling out our Trust Engine app. And this is just the data I already said. Like when you look at existing homes and the level they're at right now versus historic levels, like it's low. This is actually looking at inventory, dating back to 1983. And I don't think anybody said that they've been in the mortgage business since 1983. That's when I graduated from high school. But guys, this is something else that I don't think realtors think about enough. And even us as mortgage folks, Josh shared this with me last week, but there are solutions in industries that literally create habits, like depending on the transaction frequency in which you use something, there's the habit forming bucket. Then there's the quarterly and yearly. And then there's the forgettable zone, which, in mortgage, hey, we're doing mortgages more than real estate. But when you think about the challenge that real estate agents have, in the only industry that, is the end game, the mortician. So there is a real challenge that realtors have. And as I've interviewed you multiple times, like you've built a mortgage practice that not only takes all that into account, but you help agents. So let's get ahead of NAR. And how big of a deal do you think this NAR settlement is today? And how big of a deal do you think it's going to be, once we get on the other side of the shift? Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that initially is going to be a little bit of just some initial chaos initially, right? Because the main difference that the NAR settlement is bringing forward is that realtors will now need to likely get home buyers to sign some sort of agreement prior to begin showing homes. And at the time that they're signing these agreements, they'll have to agree to a set of compensation, right? Is it going to be 3%? Is it going to be 1.5%? Is it going to be 2.5%? Right? And so, but as of now, right, the buyer agency, like exclusive agreement have always been in place, but very low, not very well adopted, right? You have maybe 5–10% of realtors that actually get people to sign a document prior to showing homes. Well, as we get past the NAR deadline, right, the new chapter, that's going to become customary, right? So a realtor that previously had concerns and ultimately was unable to get people to sign a buyer agency or a buyer, representation agreement, now we'll have an easier time getting those agreements signed because it will become customary, right? Now, again, with obstacle comes opportunity, right? So that's an obstacle for them, which means that agents that can better craft their value proposition, that can better craft a buy-side presentation, right, that has the right strategy and process, to execute on those things, we'll be able to gain significant market share, right? Because again, the number of transactions, as you mentioned, has come down, right? But that will likely, as rates come down and the market, inventory increases, and people are ready to get out of their 3% rate that they've been sitting on forever, and they're going to move to the next home, things will start to adjust again, and the opportunity will remain strong for realtors, right? But right now, if realtors can really craft a great value proposition, if they can really craft a really good buyer presentation that they stick with, that has some sort of strategy and sales methodology in it, they will pick up a ton of market share. Now, the other thing that we will see is we'll see a number of realtors exit because they're just not great salespeople, and they're not process driven, they're not data driven. And so it's going to be harder to build that value proposition and ultimately, have people excited about buying, about signing, right, a buyer representation agreement. So there's a lot of opportunity here. And then there's a lot of opportunity for the loan originators to be able to support realtors in that journey.
Yeah, there's no doubt. So I'm interviewing Tim Lamb, a top producer in the Iowa market. He's been doing value prop workshops with realtors where, and I haven't heard it firsthand yet. I heard it secondarily from Scott Nicholson, the founder of Lender Marketing Platform. But he was telling me that when he does it, he's having everybody write down, like in a room, write down your value prop, 5 bullets, what's your value prop? And then he calls on someone and he says, give me your first item on your value prop. And they say it out loud. And then he goes, does anybody else have that? Raise your hand if you have that on your list. And they all raise their hand. And he's like, someone else, tell me what you have on your list. And they say it. And he's like, does anybody else have it on their hand? Everybody raises their hand. And after about 3 or 4 times of that, they kind of realize they all have the same unique value prop. And then the workshop begins. What are you doing anything like that where you're working, whether it's one-on-one, whether it's lunch and learns? Are you doing any value prop workshops with agents right now?
We have been. At the end of the day, if you think about the value proposition, the value proposition is relatively, simple, right? You've got to, make things easier, for people. You got to, be accommodating. You got to have great communication. You have to have good negotiation skills, right? You have to be an expert in the area that people are looking to buy. You have to have good relationships, right? Good, good overall reach. But it's not just the value proposition, Dave. It's how you communicate the value proposition, right? And then how do you actually execute on that value proposition, right? Do you actually deliver on what it is that you say you were going to do, right? And that comes down to, it is very similar to, so like the originators that are killing it, right? Because the market has shifted over 2.5 years ago when rates went up. There are originators that adjusted to it, and they have been absolutely killing it. We've seen the best originators become, like really, really, widen the gap, right? Because they have been process driven, they have been data driven, and they have been focused on educating the consumer, right? And it really comes down to the loan consultation, right? And so if you think about on the realtor side, now that you have to have people sign, buy-side representation agreements, it really comes down to their buyer consultation, which is very similar to that of a loan consultation for a loan officer. So loan officers that are really good already right now at loan consultations, right, they can go ahead and help their agents essentially have the same process when they meet with their buyers, right? Right now, agents don't necessarily have a process when it comes to a buyer consultation because it's really about, hey, let me go show you a house, right? And then if they like the house, then they start to negotiate, make an offer, right? There hasn't really been an emphasis on, hey, let's meet, sit down, have a true consultation, understand what your goals are, go over what the housing market looks like, what is the strategy to win right now, what is that going to look like for your family, how do we handle communication, you know, how do we go through the offer process? All of that has to be touch point, specific points within their consultation. And loan officers that have been doing this correctly, right, for the past couple of years, really emphasizing their loan consultation, educating clients, understanding their goals, right, utilizing tools like MortgageCoach, right, to be able to educate people on short and long-term gains as it relates to building equity, right, educating people on how to win, right? Different ways to structure their offer to be able to ultimately get an offer accepted, right? They're already good at it. And so they simply have to start sharing that and showcasing that with their realtor partners. So yes, we've been doing that consistently right now, you know, as a prep to, to what's coming.
So guys, if you're a loan officer, I'm going to give you some things that I think you should write down after what you just heard from Daniel. And then for all the producing managers, I'm going to give you a little addendum to what I just heard him say. So first of all, if you're a loan officer, how do you communicate your value prop? And how are you currently collaborating and working with your agents to just communicate your value prop so that you're both doing at a level of excellence? The sidebar I'd put to all the producing managers, like, are you leading by example? And then are you coaching, training, actually doing some role playing so that your branch, the loan officers you're responsible for their success, are communicating that. And then I love this, guys, and this is the Daniel Saw magic. Number 2, where he said, like, how do you execute your value prop? And because there's 2 totally different things. There's what you say. My advice makes a difference. You know, I help people build wealth with real estate and, you know, these words, but then how do you execute that? And then to all the managers, the side note is consistently and at scale. And so Daniel's a great example of where he's taken his team that you heard it, closing 200 loans so far for the year. So on track to close over 400 loans. Last year, I think he did around 370. So he's having a better year. But how are you doing that consistently and at scale? So for all the producing managers, guys, like, what are you doing? What are the ongoing systems and processes you have to do that? So with that said, I want to start workshopping with you, Daniel. And I did this with Jeremy, where I showed him this slide and I said, hey, this is what I've heard the typical realtor value prop. And in that last interview I did with Jeremy, we added a few things, like we added community leader, we added pocket listings. Pre-NAR settlement, is there anything missing here that you think is, just call it the typical value props that a realtor has? Anything come to mind?
I think the communication policy and keeping things easy, right? Making it easy, but that's all, you know, those could be sub bullet points to what you have right now. I mean, I like the value proposition, but I mean, you know, sometimes what I see happening when people think about value proposition, Dave, is that people just overcomplicate, right? So if you think about what do people want when they get a realtor, right? What do they want? They just want a house, right? They want a house. So your value proposition as a realtor is whatever it takes to get them a house, right? So first and foremost would be strategies on the offer process, right? Like, so a consistent, you know, execution on winning multiple offer scenarios. So how do you win multiple offer scenarios? Like that should be a value proposition, winning at multiple offer scenarios. If I am a buyer wanting a house, I want to increase my chances of getting a house. And so I want to work with a realtor that has a history of winning or has a process on how to win on multiple offer scenarios, right? That's the most important to me. Besides anything else, that's the most important. Now, and then, as you go down the from there, right? Okay, so we have a process on how we win, right? How can you find the right house, right? So what's the process on sourcing the correct home, right? So there needs to be a process for that. And then beyond that, so you're going to find a house, you're going to win the house, right? Now you have to then make things easy for the buyer, right? And a lot of that has to do with your communication skills, right? Like, how do you handle communication, right? Do you have a process that you can outline what the communication will look like when the moment that a client meets you all the way until they go into contract, and then from contract to close, and then what does that communication look like beyond closing? And so if you can outline, go ahead.
And oh, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was going to say, if you can outline the sub bullet points to each of those categories that we just talked about, process the source, process the win, right? How do you make things easy for customers, right? What are some of the things that you do that other agents aren't doing that ultimately just makes it more enjoyable and pleasant and easier to work with you, right? And then how do you communicate throughout the process? I mean, those are very common sense value propositions in my mind, right? That you need to offer home buyers. And if you just keep it simple, then people understand that, right? The moment that you start using flowery words, right? I am going to be the market leader in this and that, and I can understand all of these things. People just lose it because they don't like that sounds great, but it doesn't resonate, right? When you talk about, hey, I'm going to help you win. We're going to convert the offer. I'm really good at doing that. This is my process. This is how I convert, right? This is how I source. So we'll find you the right house. Then people resonate because, again, when your process is easy, it's easier for people to understand it. And then when it's easier for people to understand your process, then it's easier for people to make a decision to pick you. When your process and your value proposition sounds really good, but it's hard for you to explain to people, when it's hard for you to explain to people, when it's more complex, it's more difficult for people to understand it, which then requires them to do some research and further understand what it is that you're talking about, which means it makes it also harder for them to make a decision to pick you, right? So you want to be able to convey your value proposition in a way that is easy for people to resonate with, and so that they can just make a common sense decision and say, you're it, I'm working with you.
Love that. Love that. And you added to this, I came up with, this document, the value prop for 2025. And I put right at the very top, Daniel saw here, quote, strategies and process to win multiple offer situations. And I have to think that a lot of realtors and loan officers talk about that, but I have to think not enough talk about that. And are you leading with that? Are you literally making that like a cornerstone? And then, number two, no realtors talk about how home ownership builds wealth and how I have a process and a partner that's not only going to help you build wealth with real estate over time, but heck, I'm going to help your whole family. Like, hey, do you have a real estate plan for your kids? Have you considered helping them buy their first home and house hacking in college? Like, no realtor or loan officer is leading with building wealth with real estate. But by the way, not no. Everybody on here, we're mortgage coaches, and this is a value prop. And then I love this. I'm actually going to move this to the top. Make it easy, make it simple. And by the way, when you're meeting with the consumer, while we're listing out, 12 different value props, you should never be communicating 12 different value props or you have no value prop. It should be tailored. It should be tailored to a consumer. And I don't know, like this is how I lead team. Like everything's tailored. Like I'm asking questions, I'm understanding what you are. And ideally, it's gonna be 3. I'm gonna come in with a 1, a 2, and a 3, and never more than 5. Like and I hate to, I'm not gonna use the word never because there are times where there's some. So even if you've got 12 value props that make you valuable, you're tailoring, you're focusing on 3. And if you think you need to throw a 4 and a 5, you throw it in. Any thoughts on that from a sales leadership perspective, Daniel?
I mean, listen, what you're doing is awesome, right? I think that keeping things simple, right? As you mentioned, you're providing the list of all possible, value proposition, and people should, utilize the value proposition that most resonate with them, that they can actually execute on, and it actually means something to them, right? But then the one thing that you mentioned that I didn't mention earlier that I want to emphasize is the process on how you convey the opportunity of owning real estate. What is the investment return, right? What does it look like, right, when you are when you own a home? What does that mean, right? How will that help your family more so than it would if you were renting a house, right? So that is, I believe, a really important piece that should be included in the value proposition of most people, for sure.
Okay, cool. So let's and remember, audience, put your questions in chat. Someone asked for my slides. The deck I'm using is the deck I use when I do training for our Trust Engine platform clients. I'll put a version of that just because I have like so many slides, but I'll create a version of this. And if you're watching this on YouTube, there'll be a link down below to my slides. And yeah, Nick, he is with NFM. So keep the questions coming because we're almost at halftime now. So let's get tactical.
Looks like Cody asked a good question that flows right into the tactics as well. He asked the question, how different are your value props for why a client should work with your team compared to your value prop as to why realtors should work with your team? But this is a great question. And the reason why this is a great question is that it is relatively the same, right? At the end of the day, when it comes to what is your number one value proposition to a consumer, right? Your number one value proposition to a consumer is that you help them get a house, right? So what is the number one value proposition for a realtor to a consumer? Same thing, they help get a house. And so to us, right, when it comes to the value proposition to the realtor, how do we support realtors in helping a client get a house? Right? We do it by doing 2 things really well. Number one, we need to get people excited about buying a home, right? Mortgage rates are high, home values are high. So how do you convey the opportunity, such as what Dave was mentioning earlier, as to building equity? What does it mean to be a homeowner, right? How does that get people excited, right? And so you got to have a process to get people excited about buying a home. And then you have to have a process on how you coach your buyers on different ways to win against multiple offer scenarios. So to answer you, Cody, so if you do that, then you are doing what's necessary for the realtor to have an opportunity to win. And so if that's all that you have to do, then you really should just convey to realtors what it is that you do to get people excited about buying and what it is that you do to get people to win against multiple offers. Because if you do that, then the realtor wins. Now, think about this. Every time a realtor sends a client to you, 1 of 2 things will happen. Either 1, you are going to make the client more excited about buying, or you're actually going to hurt. So you're actually going to either help the realtor or you're going to hurt the realtor. What most loan officers do, and they do this without even knowing that they're doing this, what most loan officers do is they hurt the realtor. right? I hear from realtors all the time when they're like, yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about sending a client to the lender because in many cases, after they talk to the lender, they ghost me, right? And why is that? The reason they ghost the realtor is because most lenders will get on the phone with a client and they'll say, well, they'll lead with rates, right? Well, rates right now are, 7, 8, whatever, 6.5, whatever rates are, right? And payments are going to be high and closing costs and this and that. And then they get off the phone with the lender and call the realtor and they're like, listen, I've decided we're going to stay put and just rent for another year, right? And so how can you make sure that it's the opposite of that, right? So if you're a loan officer, I'm painting this picture here because it's important that you understand this. When a realtor refers you a client, your number one job is to get that client super excited, because after that client gets off the phone with you, who do you think they're going to talk to? They're going to talk to the realtor and they're going to provide feedback on what you did, right? And if the feedback was, wow, Daniel really helped me understand the opportunity when it comes to buying real estate. I'm super excited. I want to make sure I get in before rates come down, right? So that I can benefit from that upside in property appreciation, right? And then I can refinance and get a lower interest rate down the road, right? So if you can convey that really well, right, get people excited about buying, and then again, coach them on what it takes to win against multiple offers, then you're doing your job to help the realtor succeed.
Love that. Keep questions coming. So let's go into tactical, because I just want people to hear your value prop and how you're articulating that to agents in a way that you're helping agents post an NAR settlement. So, how would you describe your value prop?
Listen, my value proposition to realtors right now is when they send a client over, we're going to get them super excited about buying a home, and we're going to coach them on what it takes to win. We have a track record of converting against multiple offer scenarios. And then beyond that, we will help coach the realtor in ultimately delivering on their value proposition and perfecting and optimizing as they move along, right? So that's the number one thing that we can do. And when we meet, obviously, that's just the very basic. Again, I'm keeping it super simple because it should be simple. The moment that you start adding a list of 10 things you do, the realtor's like, I don't need that, I don't need that, I don't need that. Really what they need is they want to win. So what does it take to win? If people are excited about making offers, that's a step in the right direction, right? And if people are equipped with the knowledge on what it takes to win on multiple offer scenarios, that's another step in the right direction. If people have been properly educated on the payments and cash to close and they're not going to flake out, that's a step in the right direction, right? And so those are the things that you really want to deliver. And if you can showcase that to realtors when you meet with them, right? And you can talk through your process. Again, I keep putting an emphasis on process. Then what realtors see, they visualize the buyer experience as they speak to you. And then in their mind, what they're thinking is wow, I would love all my buyers to be able to have that experience with you. And now they're already thinking beyond, who they are working with right now, because they just want their next buyer to have that kind of experience, be excited about buying, and be equipped to make strong offers to win. That's it.
So guys, did you hear how simple that was? And again, how do you communicate it? Super simple. I'm going to make them super excited to buy a home, whether that's a move-up buyer, whether that's a first-time home buyer, whether that's someone that's got a 4%, 3% rate on their current home and they're moving up and going to get a 6 or 7%. All the landmines, Daniel is armed to make them super excited and to coach them on how to win in a multiple offer situation. So, home run, super simple, super easy. Now, remember, guys, there's 2 parts. How do you communicate it? Super simple, super on point in the market at hand. And now how do you execute that? Because, it's one thing saying it, and then it's another thing, how are you actually going to deliver on that in a way that's, unique and valuable? So how do you execute on that?
So the execution piece requires practice, right? Just like any professional athlete, right? You know, if you're a kicker for a football team, you're on the sidelines kicking, you know, 100 balls before you go in and you have your one kick, right? If you're a quarterback, you're on the sidelines, you know, throwing balls, and then you go in and you execute, right? And you practice multiple times a week to go in and have that one game, right? When in sales, it's the same thing, right? You know, we're professionals. Professionals practice, right? And if you're not practicing, then you're not, I mean, listen, if you're not practicing, then you're not maximizing your potential. That's the bottom line, right? And so the execution comes from practice. And so what do you need to practice? You need to practice on how you make good presentations, right? So that part of that is how you build out your mortgage coach presentations, right? Make sure that it's properly built every single time and it's easy, right? What else do you need to practice? You need to practice the first 60 seconds of every call, right? You should be sharp right out the gate, right? Have to have a script, right? So that's internalized and it just sounds supernatural. You should practice every possible objection. Everybody knows what the objections are, right? So why don't you have a proven way to respond to objections that you practice on a consistent basis? What else should you practice? You should practice the exact process and script on how you get people excited about buying. You should practice the exact process and script on the different ways to win on multiple offer scenarios, right? And obviously you should practice, you know, the realtor meeting outline. What is it like when you sit in front of a referral partner? What are the questions that you're going to ask? What are the solutions you're going to provide? And how are you going to close at the end of that meeting so that realtors are really excited about sending you the very next buyer that they come through? That's what execution is all about, but it comes down to practice, and professionals practice. And if you don't practice, you just won't maximize your potential, period.
Love that. And so, by the way, John, agree, you know, wealth builders. Before this kicked off, Daniel and I were talking about the Denise Donoghue interview from a few weeks ago and how she's doing weekly wealth stories. I thought that was like money. You know, like, yeah, great example. Loan officers close loans, mortgage advisors, mortgage coaches help close loans, but help families build wealth with real estate. So we'll put a link to that interview down below.
That I really want to make a point here. You know, Denise, you know, is a perfect example, right? The mortgage nerd. Had a really great experience having a mastermind talk with her, you know, at one of your events, Dave, which was really exciting. And she resonates and exemplifies exactly all of the things that I'm talking about right now, right? She is very focused on educating customers. She leads them, you know, through the process in this like quest for, you know, proper research and proper preparation, right? And that's exactly what it takes, right? And so, and again, practicing is everything in this scenario right now if you're going to execute at a high level.
So we have a lot of mortgage coaches on here right now. What are the mortgage coach experiences that you're delivering the most right now that deliver on that promise? You know, help get people super excited about buying a home and win in multiple offer situations. What are you delivering so that you say it and then you show how you do it?
Super simple, you know, because here's the bottom line. When you get a client for the first time, there's no pressure on selling. Why do I say that? Because right now it's the preparation mode, right? Most people, when you first interact with a customer, in average, they're 45 days out from going into contract, right? So you're 45 days out from having to have, you know, final terms and all those things, right? So it really shouldn't be, you know, focused on terms and more about the structure of how you're going to help them maximize their savings, right? And it should really be focused on educating them on what it's like to build equity, educating them on what it's like to win, educating them on different ways to structure their loan so that they're prepped, you know, for when they do find a house. So at the loan consultation stage, a couple of good mortgage coach presentations that everybody should have, you know, ready to go would be, first, right now, it's really relevant to have the cost of waiting presentation. Another really relevant mortgage coach presentation would be rent versus own presentation, right? Another very relevant presentation would be, just something specific to what the terms would look like if somebody's looking for the lowest possible rate, right, versus what an average rate would be today, right? And the difference between cash to close and what the ultimate payment will be. And so I think these are basic ones. And again, I like to keep things very simple, because the more simple you keep your process, the easier it is for people to make decisions. And at the end of the day, when you're meeting with clients, if you do your job correctly, they're picking you as the expert that's going to lead them through the process, rather than pick a mortgage term to shop against somebody else, right? Because they really just want to work with a professional that they trust, that they know is going to lead them to the good end result, which ultimately it's the getting a house.
Hey, Daniel, do you have any TCAs that you could just show real quick so people could get an example of one of yours? And anything Daniel shows right now, guys, we'll put a link down below if you're watching this in the YouTube channel. And also, if I have the link, he sent me a few before the interview. If I have the one that he shows, I'll put that in chat for anyone. But let's just spend it a minute or two so that folks get this.
So here's a really good one, that people should educate customers on during a loan consultation. We call this the cost of waiting, right? And really what we're emphasizing here is something that we've seen, right? There's a lot of articles out there. There's celebrities like, Barbara Cochran, making rounds, on TV, talking about how home values are going to explode once rates come down, right? And she even put a figure out there. She believes home values may go up 20% when rates get into the fives, right? Because there's going to be a lot more people that will come back into the pool. And so this is a pretty basic one that you can show, right? Average home values in US are 400,000, let's say, depending on the market that you're in. And so a $400,000 home right now, if you're doing a 5% down payment, you will need to bring $23,000 to closing, and you have a payment of $3,300 a month, right? If you wait, right, for rates to come to 5.5%, and now home values have jumped, right? Because when rates drop, we're going to see that potential jump in home values. If that holds true, right, based upon what a lot of people are saying, you could be looking at a home, instead of the same house that was $400,000 today, maybe $480,000. So now, instead of you borrowing $380,000, you'll be borrowing $456,000 with only 5% down. Now you're looking at a payment that is actually higher at a lower rate than the payment you could get today. So the bottom line that what we're trying to convey to customers right now is that if you can afford a home now while rates are higher, you're better off purchasing now than waiting, because if you wait and rates come down, now you're competing with a lot more people, so the multiple offers will increase. So you're going to be seeing homes go far above what the list price will be, right? Same thing that we've saw before, right? When homes would go up 50,000 above list or 100,000 above list, we'll start to see that again, and you will miss the opportunity, because now here's what you can look. If you purchased the house at 400,000 now, you're going to be able to benefit from the equity increase, right? So now you've built $80,000 in equity, and then you're able to refinance later, right? Most companies are offering, free lender cost or, different incentives to be able to help people refinance. So now you're looking at a payment much lower, and you have $100,000 worth of equity that you wouldn't have otherwise. And so painting this picture to consumers, right? Really getting them to understand, hey, if you wait, that's fine, but the same home that you would buy today is going to be higher. There's going to be more competition, and you're going to miss an opportunity to be able to build a lot of equity, and then keep the lower loan amount that can then be refinanced to bring the payment significantly down. And in a very short period, in a very short term, right? We're looking at maybe 12 to 18 months when we will see rates, again, based on expert opinion, where we will see rates into the fives. So I think that's what's important to convey. That's a really good one. Any questions on this one, Dave?
No, but I mean, does this totally connect? I'm going to help get your buyers super excited to buy now, and I'm going to prepare them to win in multiple offer situations. And by the way, if you're not using mortgage coach, if you're not like an expert at doing this, how do you can say those words, but then how do you actually show cleanly and consistently that you're doing that? And for all the managers on this call, like, this is an opportunity for you as a producing manager to, one, lead by example, make sure you're doing this, and then teach, train, role play, not just for a week, but consistently until you have every loan officer in your branch closing 5, 6, 7 loans per month. And when you have that kind of efficiency and that kind of production, that type of conversion, like, check, you are going to crush it in this market, in every market. No other questions on that. I would love it if you would also forward me one of your rent versus owns. You don't need to get into it right now.
Sure.
And by the way, you can stop sharing your screen, but I would love to just, maybe the 4 most common that the Daniel Saw team is using. A lot of people I've been interviewing lately are also showing commission options. Hey, if the seller pays, if the seller doesn't pay, is that something that you guys are using yet?
Yeah, no, certainly, yes. So we do have some TCAs that are specific to listing agents, but remember, when it comes to working with on the loan consultation process with buyers, you want to keep it simple. A mistake I've seen people make is to have too many TCAs set up, right? And you have to understand a sales methodology that's called understanding the buyer shift. So what is the buyer shift, right? You should be doing most of your consultations via Zoom or in person, so you can see the body language and you can understand, how your customer is reacting based upon what you're showing. So you start by showing something very simple, right? Because again, right now you're just kind of making sure that your client qualifies, right? That they can afford a house, right? And they're prepared to make the payment and the down payment. And then you want to show, a cost of waiting structure, such as I did right now, right? To really convey the opportunity and get them excited about buying. If after that, they feel pretty good, you should move on to the next step, which is, okay, well, let's talk about what it takes to win. And don't go back into, now let me show you this, now let me show you this, now let me show you this, because now what you're doing is you didn't understand the buyer shift. The buyer shift is you show the cost of waiting. They're really excited about that. They're not, like, there's no reason to overkill and show additional, several other options when they're not necessarily relevant until, several weeks from now, when they actually go into contract, right? So the buyer shift is really important to understand.
Keep it simple, everybody. Like, go back, like, and really, too, like, when you're talking to a buyer, if you have made the case twice and you've shown 2 different things, check. Let's move on. Let's make it easy, simple for them to do business with us. So Daniel, go ahead. Okay, so we got 10 minutes left, and you've always, in your platform, have always used Sales Boomerang and been serious. You're a data-driven mortgage platform, and you guys have got an unprecedented ROI of Sales Boomerang, but you've recently started using the whole the whole Trust Engine platform. And what was your why? Why did you do that? And then I do want to show the app, because I want to hear how you will describe this to a realtor. I want to get a script out of you. But what was your why for going, hey, I want to use the whole Trust Engine platform?
When it comes to using the whole Trust Engine platform, specifically the Borrower Intelligence Portal, it comes down to building competitive advantage, right? And so by being able to identify specific signals upon which it will lead to a mortgage transaction and identifying it earlier before it's too late, it allows you to be in a position to win more often than lose. And when you can equip your loan officers with this sort of opportunity to be able to generate additional leads that are direct to consumer, it allows for them to then also provide additional uh, support to the realtors, that they're working with, by giving a lot of clients back to the realtors that support them. And so that's the main reason behind why we decided to move forward with it.
Okay, so guys, I want to make sure everyone kind of sees it. And Daniel, I want to get a script from you on this. So, so just so everyone's got the memo, the whole platform is monitoring, Daniel's database and detecting opportunities. Usually it's about 1% of the database. And those opportunities could just be like debt consol refis, but they could be moved down. They could be moved down, they could be move up. Like here's a borrower to call and move up. They could be first-time home buyers, first-time home buyer alerts. And so to be able to click on that and every screen, you can email, you can text, you can call. It's giving some direction. It's got a link to scripts. It's got an integration with MortgageCoach. The minute we put this in the hands of Daniel's loan officers, we can see if the borrower is engaging. It's got all the data that we have on that customer. It's got explicitly why we think this is an opportunity. Like, what was it about this signal? And then, of course, scripts. So you click on the scripts, what to say if you call, what to say if you want to text the consumer, copy, text. So first of all, I think because you're rolling this out, now your loan officers will have in their palm of their hand, they'll have these MortgageCoach experiences. So they'll be able to show a realtor, hey, let me, show you how I'm getting buyers super excited to buy. So you have this in the palm of your hand, you have that in the palm of your hand. When are you going to have that conversation with realtors, and how are you going to have that conversation with agents?
It's part of the value proposition, right? Now, from a loan officer standpoint, right, optimizing your database is critical, right? Like that could be the biggest source, right, of leads and volume, right? And that can truly take care of your income and your family simply by taking care of optimizing your database. And I think that's what Borrower Intelligence Portal is doing, is taking your entire database and making sure that that's working for you in a way that is very intelligent, which then gives loan officers the opportunity to execute on opportunities that are the most valuable at the time as it relates to their database. It's really hard for you if you have a 5,000 person database. And again, the database is not just your past clients, right? It's all the leads that you have received, the pre-approvals you've sent, all the past clients you've worked with, right? And it's really hard for you to understand who is going to make a move. And the Borrower Intelligence Portal provides that information. And not only that, it also provides the specific scripts on how to execute on the call, whether you're calling the borrower, or whether you're sending a text or an email. And so it takes a lot of the guesswork out of it and allows loan officers to be more efficient and ultimately generate more leads. Now, from the value proposition standpoint on the realtor side, right, that's a very easy plug, right? Because when you're meeting with the realtor and you're talking about how you're going to get clients excited about buying, how you're going to equip them to win, you're then going to also be able to show, and by the way, I have thousands of people in my database and a system in place to generate leads from my database, which I can then give back to you, right? And so it's a win-win across the board. And again, at the end of the day, it comes down to competitive advantage. And so you want to do whatever it takes to build competitive advantage in every aspect of your business. And this is just what we're doing to create that advantage from a database standpoint.
Right on. So, by the way, a number of people have, said, hey, how do I get that? This is an enterprise only opportunity. I'll put a link in chat. Like, this is a demo page, so you could go to the website and actually see the app and click through it and see it work. You can share this with your managers. And if you want to talk to someone on our team, click the Talk Now button, but we'll put a link to this. Request a demo of the Trust Engine app. There'll be a link to that in chat. There'll be a link to that down below. Remember, guys, this is an enterprise-only opportunity. We need to do this, for 50+ loan officers. So it's not something that we can roll out to individual loan officers, although we still have MortgageCoach available for loan officers. Also, a couple taking action things for everyone. And also just to wrap a bow around this, when you look at the entire Trust Engine advantage, it's more opportunities for you and your realtors, and it's improved conversion for you as a loan officer and improved conversion. And if you go to our 10X page for all the producing managers on here, if you go to Trust Engine /10X, we have coaching tabs. So these are the 3 best videos for coaching. I can assure you this interview I'm doing with Daniel right now will be in this left-hand corner. We're gonna have to bump Jeremy over. He's been in the right-hand corner for long enough. By the way, this is actually an interview with Alex's VP of Sale, and Alex is actually talking about how does he train these 40 loan officers to become mortgage coaches. So it's like how to turn loan officers into mortgage coaches. If you scroll down, you can sign up for all of our live training. So, literally every day of the week, we're teaching, we're training. You can sign up for the July 3rd. We will not be doing anything on Thursday. Go America, July 4th. And then, of course, every Friday we do Mastermind. And then a reminder, if you scroll down a little bit more, you'll see how-to videos. So Daniel, we only got a couple minutes left. Closing thoughts. I want you to think of yourself, is everyone watching this works for you? Like, this is your opportunity to be like head of production for the Mortgage Coach Trust Engine community. Closing thoughts, brother.
Again, what I tell people all the time is, make sure that you keep things simple, right? Have a specific process that you are comfortable executing. Practice the execution piece, and focus on building value, right? Build value in terms of what you do for your realtors, which again, we talked about the details on what it takes to win and how you can support realtors in winning, right? And again, how you build value to customers, which is, again, how do you get them a house? So focus on just like narrowing, right, what it is that you're doing, but then do really well at that, right? Focus on doing extremely well on the execution on the specific process that you choose. And again, we talked about what the process should be throughout this call, right? And if you just keep it simple, you have a process, you practice the execution, you are going to do far better and you will far outperform any of your competitors because people are just not doing a great job at that. So, the bar is relatively low when we're competing out there. And that's, by the way, for any industry, not just the mortgage industry. And if you just do a little bit better, you will see a significant better result across the board.
Yeah, and just for my closing thought, there's never been an opportunity to recruit realtors. They need clarity, they need help, they need to how they articulate their value prop. Everything Daniel said is pure gold for them. And then they need help in how to execute their value prop. So take all of this, become great yourself, and then become a coach to realtors where you're going to help them tell a story. You're going to expand that value because you're helping people build wealth with real estate. You're a mortgage professional that can people really want to buy that house in a unique way. And, be a leader to your team, be a leader to your realtors. Obviously, guys, it starts with yourself. So Daniel Saw, bro, you crushed it again, man. I really, really appreciate you.
Love you, Dave. Good to see you, my friend.
All right. Love you too, brother. And by the way, give us a reaction. What'd you think of today's call? For those of you in Zoom, give us a reaction. If you're watching this on YouTube, give it a like. If you got value, share this with your mortgage friends. Let's get out there. Let's get after it. Take care, everybody.
Awesome. Let's do it.